All right, so the bushes have had a little bit of time to dry, and once again, like I said in the last video, they're not 100% dry, they're just mostly dry. So I'm going to darken my green here. You can always add a little bit more blue if you find that it's not quite as dark as you want, and I think I'm going to do that. I always love doing the same thing in a couple different ways just to kind of see how the difference affects it, which is why I tend to often do classes where my sample and what I'm actually demoing is slightly different. So many people are visual learners, so I think that's helpful. All right, I'm just gonna put this in front of me so I can see where I put the trees before, because I liked the placing before. So I'm gonna do one here. So I'm gonna use the tip of my brush, or the side of my brush, and I'm just doing it super, super light. That's a little bit too heavy up there, so I'm gonna just add a little bit of height to it. And make sure I've got nice paint there. Light touch at the top. And then work my way down. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Trees are not perfect in any way, so the hardest part to get right is that top part there, and mainly because you're fighting with how wide the bristles of the brush are there. All right, and then I'm gonna do this one right here. So I'm doing them about an inch, inch and a half in, making sure they're not the same height, because if they were both the same height, it wouldn't look very natural. You may come across a scene where there's two trees like this, or where their height is very similar. But it just looks a little bit more natural if they're different heights. It's also a little bit more visually interesting. I think I want this one a little bit taller here. So I'm just extending the trunk just slightly. There we go. And then I'm gonna fill in around it. So I tend to do my trees in odd numbers. So I tend to do 3, 5, that sort of thing. But they don't necessarily need to be trees that are even close to the height of that one, because I only want this to frame it. I don't necessarily want it to be a huge bush here. So I've got one tree there, one little tiny one right there. And then I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna have one here. That's definitely not as tall as my framing one here, but one near it. And if you see a little bit of the mountains behind it, that's totally fine. And again, if you don't like how the top turned out, just fill it in a little bit. Starting to run out of green paint a little bit, but I think we'll do. All right, I'm gonna leave this to dry, and in the next video we're going to add the heron and the eagle, and we're also gonna add some highlighting and whatnot on the rocks and in the water.